You know, there have been many unintended consequences of Canada's federal and provincial restrictions and mandates. Early on, we saw restaurants resist the restrictions. There were many notable cases of resistance and ensuing court actions. We hear how the Justice Centre for Constitutional Freedoms fought for pastors and business owners during the pandemic. Many have tried in a variety of ways to work within Canada's legal framework to bring back the complete freedoms we've had prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. One such group that is commencing court action is Posties for Freedom. And a spokesperson with the group, Jo Martin, joins us now from her home in Ottawa. Jo, welcome to Bridge City News.
Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. Exactly what is the purpose of Posties for Freedom, Jo?
So Posties for Freedom, at first, we were just a group of employees who felt that what was going on was wrong. We felt that we were not being heard, our concerns were not being heard. And so we needed a community to come together and really talk about those things and air some of those feelings out. And what really came of it is, a bunch of people coming together on a Zoom call and sharing their experience and sharing, very intimate parts of their lives. And some of them, discussing the employer's actions and discussing what we felt was wrong. And we just really morphed into this group that needed to take control back of their lives.
Are there a number of postal workers who are still unvaccinated?
We don't know how many are, or that's not really the point of what we're doing. I think what we're doing is standing up for the freedom of choice of all of the postal workers, because many settings are not in congregated settings. For example, I work from home. There's many posties that will go in, sort their mail, and then leave, and then they're alone the rest of the day. So it's never really been about whether you're vaccinated or not for us. It's really been about if you want to have a choice to be vaccinated, you should have that choice.
So how long has your group really been advocating for postal workers, Jo?
We've been advocating for postal workers, personally myself, with the other founders of Posties for Freedom since October. However, there are pockets of posties that have come together since way before, but the mandate was officially announced at Canada Post at the end of October. So that's really when posties obviously started coming together.
So how is your approach really different from other court actions we've been seeing recently?
Our approach isn't too different. It just has an extra couple of elements to it. And so a lot of other court proceedings are based on the Charter of Rights. They're based on our human rights, but we're also adding another element to ours, which is health and safety. And that is that the employer and the employee relationship is really defined in the labor code. And this is where we are sort of adding a section to our case and ensuring that, it's quite clear to all other federal workers as well that the employer-employee relationship is the one that's responsible for your health and safety at work. The public health agency can mandate anything they want. However, your employer is responsible for your safety.
Do you have any numbers at all of how many postal workers have lost their jobs or temporarily laid off throughout the pandemic with the restrictions?
So at the beginning, there was quite a few of us. We had heard, and because obviously the corporation doesn't share any of this with us, we had heard that there was around 16,000 of us that still had not attested by their deadline. And so they labeled us non-compliant if you were part of that group. So at first we had heard there was about 16,000. And then, now it's what we have heard is a few thousand, but we're unsure again because we don't hear about this.
Now, we've been hearing of a man in British Columbia who's receiving compensation for what some are calling injuries from the mandated injections. He was temporarily paralyzed, but now he's been able to walk again, missed quite a bit of time off of work. Do you feel this really helps your case?
I mean, I feel we have a strong argument no matter what, even with all of these other stories that continue to come out that do obviously help our case. I just want to share that my empathy goes out for this man and his family, because we can only assume that, the government did the very bare minimum to ensure that they supported this man through his injuries and for the remainder of his life, that he's going to be like this. And what about his family? What about his children? So Posties for Freedom is not just fighting for federal employees. We're also fighting for everybody else to get their fair compensation, because in the end, this is not just about if you're injured. It's about everybody not having had informed consent, not having had the opportunity to make a choice. And then, this is a decision that will live with them for the rest of their lives. And so how can you possibly be compensated for this? So I cannot imagine that poor man in BC has been fairly, dealt with.
So, Joe, what are you expecting to really see come out of these court proceedings?
We're not sure what's going to come out of them. We try not to set any expectations. What we do want to say is that we hope that what will come out of this, that we will restore our rights as employees, but also as Canadians here, is through standing up to the bully and making sure that, the responsibility goes with the employer. And what we feel is going to come out of these proceedings is really going to be not just our group, but a bunch of groups helping each other out through this. And hopefully there will be something good that comes out of it. So that's what we hope to come out of the court proceedings.
Joe, can you tell us exactly who's representing you as part of a legal team?
Yes, who's representing us is Gray Woke Spencer in Cold Lake, Alberta.
So in total, in general here, how many postal employees do you think were really impacted by the actions of Canada Post?
I think all postal employees were impacted by this, whether they wanted to do this or not. I think that all employees were impacted by this because they never got informed consent. They were never really given a choice. It was really to them. They were labeled non-compliant if they didn't comply. And I think that that's a label that they gave us, or that they gave employees who did not want to comply, in order to coerce others to do this. So I don't think any employees had a choice at Canada Post. I think everybody was coerced by this.
So Joe, can you give us what kind of evidence you'll be putting together as part of your case?
I don't think our evidence is going to be any different than other cases besides the health and safety aspect of it. I think that all cases that are going forward right now are very similar. I think that they're all charter rights, human rights violations. But like I said, I think ours has that health and safety component, and especially with federal workers, every federal entity has to have done certain checks and balances before they implement safety policies. And so we don't feel that those were adequately done. And we also have been asking for this information to be shared, and it's been very difficult to get it. So again, we don't have specific evidence to share just yet, but we do feel that ours is based on those three elements: the charter and the human rights and the health and safety.
So Joe, can you give us kind of an idea of what your job was like before and then after the restrictions?
Yes. So my job specifically before has changed quite a bit. I used to travel and do a lot of meetings on site with partners. However, now I worked from home starting March of 2020 and had been working from home since then. And like many of my fellow posties, have the opportunity to have a very low interaction with other employees. And, Canada Post put in a lot of safety policies before all of this came into place in order to, help out with the pandemic and ensure that everybody was safe. And so those restrictions are all lifting, except the one restriction that is not being lifted and stopping many employees from being able to work.
Now, Joe, obviously you live in our nation's capital in Ottawa. What were your thoughts when you saw the truckers roll in and camp out during the Freedom Rally?
My thoughts were, thank goodness that something is finally happening. And thank you for standing up for what we felt all of us have felt is wrong, I feel, at some point during the last 2 years. And it doesn't matter what side of the fence you're on. When the truckers came in, if you lived here, you very saw a huge difference in the city.
And what has it been like now that restrictions have slowly been easing?
The city has been interesting. It's nice not to have to wear a mask everywhere and for people to start feeling less like they can't touch others or hug other people. I think Ottawa has become a bit of a place where people don't find a unification anymore. There's a lot of government workers here. There's a lot of employees that were impacted by this here in the city of Ottawa. So I personally feel that the city is very divided still. Restrictions could lift tomorrow. All these mandates could lift tomorrow, and they could apologize and admit that they made a mistake. And this is not going to fix what's happened to all of our communities. And I'm sure Ottawa is not an anomaly, but I do feel that Ottawa, specifically because it is the capital, because this is where all the decisions are made, and the House, the Parliament is here. I do feel that this has been one of the most dividing experiences, and I've lived here my whole life.
Now, Joe, you and many others have taken that strong stand, something you strongly believe in, against the restrictions and mandates. Can you share what's been the hardest thing for you during this very difficult time?
The hardest thing for me has been realizing that there's a very low level of care from my observations from the employer's perspective, very low level of concern for employee mental health, wellness. There is, from what I understand, very little check-ins. There's many managers, many directors that have employees on leave without pay, going on 7 months now, very little check-ins. That hurts my heart on the deepest level. I have been an employee at Canada Post since I was 18 years old, and I have never felt that anything but gratitude for my employer. And this, I know, has scarred me and many other employees. So what has been the hardest part is watching the level of nonchalantness. It's almost like it's not a big deal that all of these people have gone 7 months without a paycheck.
So, Joe, you have the desk right now. You have a forum. You've got the stage. What message do you want to deliver to our Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, and his Liberal Party right now? What do you want to say to him?
I think that all mandates should be lifted. Personally, I would love to see the science that goes behind all of these decisions that are being made right now. It's very difficult to get any answers from anybody. I would love for the unification of Canada to be back where it once was. I was born here in Canada. I once was a very proud Canadian, and I feel very, very ashamed of how Canadians treat each other. I feel we are almost aiding the oppression that's going on with Canadians, and we're almost cheering each other on. And I feel that we should get back to a place where our leadership is somebody we can look up to, that takes people and brings us together and brings order where there's so much chaos. And I think at the end of the day, every Canadian right now should be fighting with these groups of people. And I think that my message is not really for the Prime Minister. It's really for every Canadian out there that thinks that nobody's impacted by this anymore. COVID's gone away, all of this. I encourage you to join a group, go on postiesforfreedom.ca, donate, get in the community, help out, help any groups out. Feds for Freedom, Mounties for Freedom, just help any group out that's doing this right now, because everybody needs to get into this and be together as a unified front.
Voices need to be heard. Joe Martin is with Posties for Freedom. Thanks so much for joining us today from Ottawa.
Thank you.
On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless and thanks for watching.